Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If I could pick up on the questioning that the gentlelady was asking, you indicated that, and I may have misunderstood, that there were some complications, and I would direct this to Ms. Maxwell or Dr. Agrawal. There were some complications, but it sounded like when I was listening to the testimony that we were talking about fingerprinting and criminal background checks, and many of the states are already doing that for lots of other things. Why is that complicated?
I think what we've heard from the states is that they'd like better access to real-time law enforcement data so that their fingerprint checks are higher in accuracy. We heard that loud and clear from a number of states. They also wanted more guidance about how we implemented these checks in Medicare. So we've given them that guidance and then on their behalf got them access to FBI state-level criminal data so that they can bump their fingerprint checks against that database. And so we look to states now making significant progress since we've armed them with these tools.
I guess I'm just curious because checking both the national and the state with the fingerprint has been something that's been done. Background checks have been done for quite some time, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia that I represent. But I didn't realize some states were not doing that. Mr. Bagdoyan, in your testimony, you indicated, of course, when we've already heard today about the weaknesses in the CMS's verification of provider practice location, physician licensure status, et cetera. And you said you'd made some recommendations which CMS indicated they would implement or were taking steps to address. What specifically did you recommend to them that they might do to improve that? Because obviously it's a little shocking when you find out that we've got money potentially going to empty office buildings or to a UPS mail drop.
Right. Well, thank you for your question. Regarding the locations, it was a software issue, a screening software issue, where it was lacking some critical flags, like whether it's a mailbox, whether it's an empty lot, or it's just not recognized by the Postal Service. So CMS took this to heart. They did some work and went ahead and upgraded the software with a new package that has these flags. This is a relatively recent development, so we'll see going forward how effective that's going to be. Regarding...
And do you think that was the software provider's problem? Because it seems to me that that would have been something normal. We shouldn't in 2016 or even in 2015 be thinking, well, shucks, we ought to check to see if somebody really is there. Is that something new, or is this just that their software failed them?
It's not new. We have the software from the Postal Service that we use at GAO for various forensic audits. It's relatively inexpensive and easy to use. However, at the time CMS purchased its own software, I'm not sure what kinds of requirements definitions they made of the contractor or requirements to the contractor regarding requirements of the software. So I can't speak to that in any depth, but forward-looking, CMS is moving in the right direction.
And I appreciate that, but Ms. Maxwell, if the Postal Service has a system that they use for this, that GAO uses to check up on things, why'd y'all go out and spend money on something else? And can you tell me, I know you may not have that off the top of your head, but can you give us the information on how much you spent on a software program when the Postal Service had one that was fairly effective and easy to use, according to Mr. Bagdoyan?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, I believe that's directed to CMS about the database.
Yes.
We did not look particularly at that. The work that we did looked at the information that was in the data system about provider ownership and found discrepancies in that information as well. And in totality, I would say having the correct address, having the correct owner's name is critical to making the proper enrollment decision. You need that information to make a decision.
So I should have asked that question of you.
I was thinking of bailing her out, but then you kept going.
So why are we how do I tell my taxpayers back home that we're getting our dollars worth when we're going out and reinventing the wheel when the Postal Service already has something that would at least tell us whether or not that was an address that actually existed or was in the middle of the river somewhere?
Right. So the Postal Service, I think the GAO identified a very useful tool for us. We have integrated that into our systems. Now, there's a difference in integrating a tool like that into your systems, making sure that it cross-talks with other databases, making sure that you have a process behind it. That's very different than what's conducted in an audit where, a few people get access with a license to the database. So it will inherently be more expensive to actually get it fully integrated with our other work. I also do want to make the point that The data is a great source of lead information, but it also can produce false positives. So
Let
we
me-
saw that in the sample provided to us by the GAO as well.
I apologize because my time is out, but I've got two things I'd like for y'all to respond to at a later date. One, how do you rank with the private industry as far as your being able to identify fraud? And two, I like telemedicine, so let's figure out a way we can make that work, because I heard somebody else say earlier they were worried about that creating fraud. But for a rural district, it's very important, and I yield back.
Thank you. Now recognize Mr. Tonko for 5.